What I printed from the email last time.
That's their document. That's one that Mr. Smith.
Okay, so I don't need to throw it away. I just need to know.
Please don't.
Replacing
Too much time and effort in it.
I just want to make sure that I'm getting it.
But this, oh, this is two-sided. That's why it's less. David, here, Brad. Brad told me to open up.
Oh, okay.
Sure. I'll just say where we are.
Yeah, you want to take it?
And it's smaller than it's printed on two-sided.
Okay.
They're semi-shaped.
No, that's fine. I don't mind about it. I went to
Mine's at my house.
Yeah, I know. You and I are. Yeah, I would have gone yours.
You should.
Yeah.
Come every year.
Some more fun.
It is.
Yeah.
And everything's free.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I just didn't want to.
No, it's fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
well then, if you see someone on, there's
I didn't
one.
invite my competition, so.
Okay, all right.
I'm going to pass that to you anyway.
Because I would get a little weird.
I simplified it.
Yeah, I don't.
But you got it.
Okay.
I'm not ready to get some.
All right. Well, then you, if you see, there's one person today for me on Facebook, completely on a holiday.
Oh, okay.
I'll be on the streets.
Okay.
Thank you, Rita.
You're welcome.
And that huge book we have.
It's crazy.
Wait till the bottom.
Okay, are we ready?
I gotta go in.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to our City of Temple Terrace Redevelopment Agency workshop for September 1st, 2012. Kim, would you want to go ahead and kick this off?
Well, Mayor and board members, for our unique meeting this morning, I just need to point out a couple things. As you mentioned, this is a carryover from our last Tuesday meeting and some changes. I know staff has been working diligently with the Vlass team. Immediately following the meeting on Tuesday, we met for 3 or 4 hours trying to work out some of the details as directed by council or the CRA board. We regret that the lateness of some of the submittals, but due to the severe time constraints, it was best to be done. Lastly, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to point out, I know that this is a busy time. I know that Mr. Gorlich is scheduled to leave at 11 o'clock on a flight. So I would suggest we need to make sure we're complete by then at the latest.
So we need to get started.
Yes, sir.
Well, first we want to call David Smith, who worked with Mark Connolly and some of our staff to come up with some revisions from what was discussed last Tuesday. So David, why don't you
Yes, sir.
take it from there?
Good morning, David Smith, 201 North Franklin for the applicant Vlass. I would like to start with that which is most important to start with, and that is with an apology with respect to some of the things that occurred at our last meeting. I think that meeting got a little bit unnecessarily contentious. It's never appropriate for people to say some of the things that were said, and for our participation in that, I apologize. We may differ, that's perfectly appropriate, but we should articulate those differences in a way that's respectful of your position, and that's what we will continue to do, but at times I don't think that is what was done. So please accept my apology for that. Also, since we're trying to get on the hit list for Greenpeace, I'm going to give you more dead trees. And I'm doing this simply because I think it's the easiest way to get access to what I think we need to talk about today. So I'm going to pass this out. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the transmittal letter, and I'd like to walk you through the document that we have. I'll give the original to the clerk. and for the sake of brevity, because we do want to comply with Mr. Pagorla's schedule, is I'll just briefly say that our primary point here, as you know, is we're trying to focus on a minimal amount of changes to the MDA to accomplish the limited purpose, which is to move forward with the sequencing of development that we're suggesting is the one that is necessary to encourage the success of this project. So what I've done is I've tried to stick with that. We recognize there's a tension between typically a development need for flexibility to respond to the market and a public body's need for control. You need to be able to explain things to your citizens. You need to make sure you're comfortable with the processes and that things are going to occur as you intend them to occur. I would suggest that we believe we're erring a little bit too much on the side of control. I think the history has been a positive one. Things have been developed according to plan. Project's been well developed. I think the improvements you have out there are a positive reflection on the community. And so we'd like you to take that into account in assessing our future intentions. I think they are going to be consistent with that. We think the proposal ultimately should be approved because it is responsive to the market and the demographics. That is so important for a project to succeed. If you have a project that is not, you have a project that's likely to stall and fail. Empty projects, stalled projects do not work for communities. One of the things we'd like to reemphasize, and we'll walk through the details, is we believe it's important to remember that the vision that you're, not this vision thing, it has a different connotation, but the vision you're trying to accomplish here is accomplishable significantly by virtue of the horizontal integration of uses and their adjacency. That said, we're doing what we can to accommodate the vertical integration by building the ground floor in a manner that can be retrofitted for commercial or non-residential uses. And that is a significant expense. It's not something, it's a small thing, but it's something that we think is imperative because of what the city's looking for. That having been said, what I've given you is, and probably the best way to walk through this, is to look at the document that is under the letter. And the document under the letter is referred to as a red line. And what a red line means is it tracks changes that were made from a previous document. The red line that you're looking at shows the changes we have made from the document that was presented to you on Tuesday. Yes, sir.
Let me just interrupt you 1 second. Kim, is this, do you know, can you tell, is this red line that we got, is this the same one we got emailed last night?
I'd have to.
It should be.
It should be?
Yes, sir.
The only reason I ask is because I've already marked it up so that I don't have to do that all over again. I'd rather just refer to mine rather than yours.
If that's the one that I sent out
It
to
was.
Kim, it is the same one. And
About 4:37, or
Right.
yesterday afternoon.
yes. Now, I do have an errata that no one has seen yet, but I've attached it to your packet. I'll show you that. It's just one paragraph.
I haven't had the chance.
I understand.
So,
Thank you.
essentially what you're looking at in the whereas clauses, these are some recitals that the city attorney was concerned were either unnecessary, they were somewhat contentious, et cetera. Fine, we've made those changes. I think you can see what those are. Some of those we negotiated literally at that section after the last meeting, and some of those were simply objections that had previously been made by staff. So I don't think there's any issue on the whereas clauses.
And I'll just say, there will be, and I mean, well, I don't know how useful going line by line, if we just talk concepts at this point, that may be more useful than going line by line through the document.
Okay.
But I think he's gonna have to bring up the items that were in dispute at our last meeting and see how those might have been modified.
Certainly.
Yeah, we'll quickly get to the heart of the matter, which I think is the paragraphs we're coming up to. I think paragraph 2 is simply a statement that makes it clear that by virtue of attaching a new site plan, it is not intending to waive any code requirements. The code is applicable, that's under the MDA, it will remain applicable. Now, I think we start getting into the heart of the matter in paragraph 3C. And what we're talking about here is the timing, sequencing of the development. And we're talking about, we have to file, we've agreed to file a, I believe it's called the preliminary site plan that will include buildings J and K, and we'll file that no later than 60 days after this third amendment is approved, if you should approve it. So we have a specific time frame, and it has to be done and needs to be filed. Now we're talking about in subparagraph Romanet 2, and I think we ought to look at this and read it because it's important. It says the required arch building upon obtaining a building permit that will be applied for once the proposed building plans pursuant to the design and approval process set forth in the second amendment have been agreed to by the parties, which the building permit being applied for within 30 days of receipt of all information necessary to determine the proposed building plans. Essentially what we're saying is we will commence construction upon issuance of the building permit. The building permit will be applied for immediately within 30 days of when we have all the documents necessary to apply for that building permit. That's what Romanet 2 talks about. It doesn't have a specific time frame, but due to the vicissitudes, bad word, due to the fact that the development processes sometimes have some back and forth, some give and take, some changes, to have a date doesn't work for either one of us. You give us a specific date and there's things the city wants to change, we have a problem. Obviously, we gotta get into some kind of a dispute. Let's not do that. Let's just agree with the process. And that's what we're attempting to do. And then I think, excuse me, I think you'll see in Romanet 3 that the construction of that building will be completed within 12 months of the permit. So we have the process of pulling the permit. Once the permit is pulled, we have to complete construction within 12 months. And then we go on building K, we still have the language that we had in before, which was building K will be built no later than 1 year after obtaining, the earlier of 1 year after obtaining tenants or 2 years after completion of building J. So if we complete J as anticipated, under all circumstances, we've got to complete K within 2 years and sooner if we get tenants for it. Okay, and basically what we're indicating in the next one, the in furtherance clause, that deals with Exhibit G, which is part of what needs to be provided in order to build building J. And ultimately,